Is it the day of judgment? Fires are burning your tent. They cry holding my garment, Abbas. They saw your flag had fallen, confused their only children, one name by them spoken, Abbas. Is it the day of judgment? Fires are burning your tent. They cry holding my garment, Abbas. They saw your flag had fallen, confused their only children, one name by them is spoken, Abbas. In ashes, their skin covered no longer white. In ashes, in pieces, their eyes watch your tent set alight. In pieces, it crashes, running from your tent in their fright. It crashes, it crashes, running from your tent in their fright. It crashes, it cannot be that the tent of Abbas falls. It cannot be. These queens are guided by walls. It cannot be. No, Abbas answers their calls. Where are your hands? Where are your hands? Where are your hands? Where are your hands? The last thing they remember, on his horse their flag bearer. The last thing they remember, on his horse their flag bearer, leaving to bring them water, Abbas. Auntie, has he not come back? Our tongues from thirst have turned black. They faint resting on my back, Abbas. Auntie, has he not come back? Our tongues from thirst have turned black. They faint resting on my back, Abbas. Oh brother, how many hands tug on my dress? Oh brother, them water. I raise my hands, may Allah bless them water. Flag bearer, in the form of our courageous flag bearer. Flag bearer, in the form of our courageous flag bearer. Where are your eyes to gaze upon our anguish? Where are your eyes to watch the fire flourish? Where are your eyes whose sight makes despair vanish? Where are your hands? Where are your hands? Where are your hands? Where are your hands? Could it be that your two palms that rip apart all our humps are not attached to your arms, Abbas? Could it be that your two palms that rip apart all our arms are not attached to your arms, Abbas? Could it be that an arrow has broken your sister's bow and blood from your eye would flow, Abbas? It's shaking. Did your body fall to the ground? It's shaking. It's breaking. I hear from Hussein's back a sound. It's breaking. They're asking, has our Uncle Abbas been found? They're asking. They're asking, has our Uncle Abbas been found? They're asking. Lord, give him wings to fly towards these children. Lord, give him wings, carrying water within. Lord, give him wings. From his wings their thirst broken. Where are your hands? 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 Where are your hands to wipe the tears they're crying upon the sands? From thirst these girls are dying. Your banner stands. For Abbas it is calling. Where are your hands? Where are your hands?
أعظم الله أجرنا وأجركم من مصابنا أبي عبد الله الحسين. Our dearest viewers, we welcome you and we send our dearest condolences to you, to our awaited Saviour, to al-Baneen, to Amir al-Mu'mineen, to Rasulullah, to the family of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, on the martyrdom of, and specifically for this night that we remember, the one who is the gate to your needs, the one who is the flag bearer, the moon of the Hashemites, the father of virtues, the loyal brother, the warrior, the scholar, the inspirer, the uncle, the thirst quencher, Abu Fadhl Al Abbas, son of Amir al-Mu'mineen, a man who, again, I think similar to al-Baneen in terms of reverence. Many of the Shia look towards al-Baneen as a point of inspiration and passion and emotion and love. And Abu Fadhl is very similar in that regard, in that he brings a somberness to any heart, but also brings a lot of hope to any heart for anyone that knows him. And for the hands that he lost, poets describe that he gives us hands for our haja, and he takes those du'as using his wings towards the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ali, assalamu alaikum. Thank you again, to begin with something as strong as that. Thank you.
No problem. Alhamdulillah, shukr. Thank you very much for the poet Nouri Sardar as well. And assalamu alaikum, dear viewers of Verses of Love. Haj Sadiq put it absolutely perfectly in terms of the introduction to this show. It is definitely a heavy night with a heavy heart that we present the show commemorating Abu Fadhl Al Abbas. I think one of the questions I ask is, why the seventh night? Specifically, for example, in the Iraqi tradition. And why not, for example, on the ninth night? Because he was the last to leave, or the last person before Imam Hussein. And we simply say that the water was cut from the family of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein and the companions and the children from the 7th of Muharram. That's 3 days, brothers and sisters. 3 days that they were left without water. And so one of the missions that Abu Fadhl Al Abbas had on the day of Ashura wasn't to go out to battle. It was actually to go and bring water for the family and children. And look, when it comes to Abu Fadhl Al Abbas, where do you start? For example, is it the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, specifically the Imams and how they relate to Abu Fadhl Al Abbas? Imam Sadiq would say, the heart of Abu Fadhl Al Abbas burnt like charcoal from thirst when he was at the river of Furat. And he had the water in front of him and he had a chance to see. No one would have blamed him. And we say this year in, year out, no one would have blamed him at all if he had drunk the water. But he even says himself, I drink the water when Hussein is thirsty. Or I drink the water. This is not my teachings. This is not the teachings of my religion. And he also said, I think, this is not the teachings of Al-Banin. And the might of Abbas, how mighty is Abu Fadhl Abbas, that everything that he was taught and the position that he had and the sacrifice that he made was all taught from Al-Banin. So how great was this mother of Abu Fadhl Abbas? You know, and then there's many more stories you can mention. For example, when he was younger, in the Battle of Siffin, and not many people actually recognize that Abu Fadhl Abbas wasn't just Ashura. His stances, his position, again, he was only 36 years old when he passed away and he was martyred in Karbala. And the Battle of Siffin, he was with Imam Ali alayhi salam against Muawiyah. And so, like every other battle, Imam Ali, Abu Fadhl Abbas requests permission from Imam Ali. Says, my father, do I have permission to go out into battle? Imam Ali with a smile on his face, go. This is your battlefield, go. And so Muawiyah looks on when he steps into the battlefield. Qamar Bani Hashim, this youthful 14-year-old, almost like a boy. When he comes on, he's a beautiful, beautiful man. So everyone is in awe of who this person is, not knowing that it's the son of Ali ibn Abi Talib. And so Muawiyah turns to, I believe the person's name was Abu Sha'tha, who was a soldier at the time, feared soldier, right-hand man of Muawiyah. And then Muawiyah says, this beautiful boy, I want his head. So Abu Sha'tha says, are you insulting me? You want me, Abu Sha'tha, the person who killed so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so, you want me to go and kill a young boy? I'll send my youngest son. So he sends out his youngest son, Abu Fadhl Abbas, one strike, puts him onto the ground. He sends the second youngest, and the third, and the fourth, and the fifth, and the sixth, and the seventh son of Abu Sha'tha, who were known warriors within Arabia at the time. Every single one of them, until he's like, who is this? Who is this boy, essentially? And then he says, I'm going to deal with him myself. A couple of exchanges, the person is annihilated. And that's when Muawiyah and the rest of the people are asking, who is this boy? He's just annihilated half of our army. That's when the reply, he says, Ana al-Abbas ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib. I am Qamar Bani Hashim. Then, okay, so you're the son of Abu Talib, you're the son of Ali ibn Abi Talib. That makes sense now. The story here and how it relates to Karbala is that he then turns to his father and he says, oh father, are you pleased with what I have done? And then Imam Ali says, of course I am pleased. He says, can I go back out into the battlefield? He goes, no, that's enough from you. You have a day reserved for you in years to come. And that day will be the day of Karbala. And so look, there's many more that we can mention.
The crazy thing is that, and I don't know, I don't know if it's just myself, I don't think it is. I think it's most, if not all, the lovers of Abu Fadhl. He's a man that when you hear his story, you go from 1 minute of tears to another minute of smiling and awe, and then you're back in tears again, and you just...
It's just pride. We're so privileged to be of the followers of Amir al-Mu'mineen, and specifically the likes of Abu Fadhl Abbas 100%. That we can look up to, 100%.
I know there's that moment where, for those, and inshallah the viewers, if you haven't been on the walk during Arba'een towards the holy shrines of Abu Fadhl and Imam Hussein and the companions, that there's always that moment that the first shrine that you see is Abu Fadhl. And I just distinctly remember that first time. It was my first time ever to Iraq, and it was during Arba'een back in 2012. And you're kind of like thinking about this moment for a very, very long time. Like, what's it going to be like? What's it going to be like? What's it going to be like? And everyone says you'll see the dome in the distance first. And you're like, okay, not sure what's going to happen, not sure what's going to happen. And a lot of us in the group, it was our first time all going, right? We're walking. And I remember there was like this checkpoint and a bit of a turn, right? Yeah. And just as we're waiting in that taftish, that security point, we're like, why is everyone just stopped? And you see some people running, some people just drop. And it's just grown men, just, you don't know what emotion they're expressing at that point. And literally some of them, they're like, it's their first time to Iraq. They should stay with their group. They're running.
Absolutely.
They're off.
Absolutely.
And it's still 5-6K left. It's not a short distance to go. And it's that passion and loyalty and love. And even now when you go to, is it Shariq Qibla where they arrive? I think it is, right?
Yeah.
And especially our Iranian brothers, when they get there and they just start that azar with their flags just on that road as they see it, and that voice of the Shia that you hear in that road during those last 2 nights before Arba'een.
It's phenomenal.
Unmatched.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
Unmatched. But we have to be careful of time.
I was just going to mention one last thing. I think the scary thought is that he didn't go out into battle. That's the scariest thought about his stance, is that he didn't really want to fight. He just wanted to get the water. He happened to be martyred on his way back. But look, Ziyad Ashura. So let's. I'm ready to be in awe of the next lesson.
I think, if anything, we, inshallah, will take this passion off for Abu Fadhl and hopefully see that reverence we have for him. Of course, it will be greater for his brother. And this is a very important feeling for us to take into these next lines, inshallah. Sure. So we now enter the point that is, you could argue, the most talked about, maybe the most contentious part of the ziyarah. فَلَعَنَ اللَّهُ أُمَّةً أَسَّسَتْ أَسَاسَ الظُّلْمِ وَالْجَوْرِ عَلَيْكُمْ أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ. Now, disclaimer, the book of tafsir, and the second book that I'm also referring to of tafsir for this, spend a long time on this. So I want to really put a quick disclaimer to say, for a full analysis, understanding, of course, the rest of the ziyarah you need to read a lot more than what we presented, but especially this, because of the nature of the conversation, it's important that you go and refer to the books and really go into it. So I just want to give a very brief understanding of it, but please go and look further if you can. So the translation that we have, some kind of just say, again, I'll just let the viewers, I don't want to go into that. The viewers can have a look at their translation and we'll see how this builds. So first it says, فَلَعَنَ اللَّهُ, rather than just لَعَنَ اللَّهُ. And the fa in Arabic is basically just saying whatever we've just said before. This is a connective that what we're about to say refers to what we've said before.
Okay.
And what we've said before has been all of this emphasis on the praise and salam of those individuals who are in Witr al-Mawtur, this special abode or this unique status, and go back and refer to those. So we've built up this moment to now say, therefore, la'an Allah, and then we start our understanding of la'an. What does it actually mean? Commonly mistranslated as curse. It's not the correct translation for us. And rather, the actual kind of core of it means to distance from something, right? And we understand it to be, it's a distancing, asking Allah to distance His mercy from these individuals, which I think, especially when those who ask us about this, why do you curse, it's very important that you clarify, if you're asking about la'an, it's not curse, and secondly, I'm asking Allah to remove His mercy from such individuals. I think it's a very important thing for us to understand before we get tied into semantics that are actually completely wrong, and we should really clarify our stance. So it shouldn't be confused. Fine, that's the first point. So, I need everyone's attention, especially the viewers, I need your attention to follow this, because immediately when you think فَلَعَنَ اللَّهُ, etc., you can easily just think this is about Yazid, Muawiyah, Ubaydullah, etc., Shimr, those participating in Karbala. There's a lot more behind this. And you need to follow the way in which this is built to get an understanding for this. So, firstly, we start with this assasa asasa, which comes from both come from the same root word, which is asa, which is ultimately to lay the foundation for something, to prepare the foundations. And they use the example of like a building, the foundation used for a building, etc. And behind that comes the root and the origin of something. So we see a double layer of this foundation and root and origin of something. And in Quran, we see this asasa used by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when He talks about those who lay the foundations for something. And He talks about, and this is Surah number 9, verse 109, where He says those who build their foundations based on taqwa, and He has a certain thing for them, And then he talks about those who base their foundations on something based on dhulm. And we'll come to the translation of dhulm. And for those who do something and base that action on dhulm, Wallahu la yahdil qawm al-zalimin. It's a very, very clear and quite tough thing to actually accept, that if you are one of those, then Allah does not guide the wrongdoing lot. He doesn't guide you. Because you've gone out of your way to do something as serious as this. And we'll come on to what the seriousness is. So, dhulm, therefore, assasa asasa dhulmi. So you understand this assasa bit, with a lot of the S's, is about laying foundations and origins. Of what? Of dhulm. Now, what is dhulm? We typically translate it as just oppression, very broadly. However, dhulm is the notion of putting something in its incorrect place, or deliberately removing something from the place it should be in. And that's a very, very important distinction here, because we then address it specifically about dhulm upon Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. So as we start to break this down, we start to see the following translation come out. Therefore, may Allah distance from His mercy the community that established the foundation of wrongdoing and transgression against you, O Ahlul Bayt. So we're distancing ourselves, or we're asking Allah to distance His mercy from those who have set the foundations of wrongdoing and transgression, i.e. removing the Ahlul Bayt from where they should have been. And that's kind of where we get to. Now, who are the Ahlul Bayt? We needn't go into that, but suffice to say, there are 150 narrations within Sunni references that state and cite that the Ahlul Bayt are Ahlul Kisa as we understand them. But that can be proven at a later date. So, what did the Ahlul Bayt stand for? Because in order to understand the severity of this statement, it's not just about, oh, you hurt the Ahlul Bayt, that's the end of it. The Ahlul Bayt stood for something. They were part of something rather than just personalities that we revere. And that's very important to understand. We, of course, understand, and we take this from Amir al-Mu'minin Ali ibn Abi Talib when he says, Hum asasuddin wa imadul yaqeen. They, the Ahlul Bayt, are the foundations of religion and pillars of conviction. So they're the roots of the faith. Hadith al-Thaqalain tells us, is Quran and Ahlul Bayt. We understand this imamate, this divine leadership, this successorship and wilayah is something that is a continuation of the perfect message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is divine. Therefore, an attack on Ahlul Bayt is not an attack on Hussein, is not an attack on Fatima, is not an attack on Hassan. It is an attack on the faith of Islam decreed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Absolutely.
And that changes the severity of everything very, very, very clearly. Now the question comes, we didn't just say la'an on those who are the enemies of them. We said la'an on those who laid asasa, the foundations of dhulm, i.e. removed Ahlul Bayt from the positions they should have had. Did that start in Karbala, or did that start many years before? And therefore, how wide-reaching is this la'an?
Okay.
And I think we're very quick to, I at least was very quick to assume Yazid, Muawiyah, maybe as far as it would go, and Shimr and Hurmala and all of these terrible individuals. But it goes way back to the first two who started the plot to remove Amir al-Mu'mineen from the position that Allah had ordained for him, at least physically speaking.
Okay.
And that's deep.
Yeah.
That's a big statement. And I think just to qualify why that's so significant, if you have a perfect faith that is then not maintained by a perfect leader, those who follow are susceptible to then have imperfect teachings. Therefore, they are unable as humans to reach their full potential. They are at a disadvantage, through no fault, you could argue, of their own. So those who originated this misguidance are responsible for the misguidance of all the people that come after them.
And that's billions and billions of people. Wow.
So the weight of it is frightening. And Nabi Allah says it very, very clearly.
Wow.
There's a narration attributed to him where he says, I swear by the one in whose hands is the soul of Muhammad. If a slave of Allah comes forth on the day of resurrection, having performed the actions of 70 prophets, Allah would not accept that from him until he meets him, Allah, with the belief in my wilayah and the wilayah of my Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. So if you've severed that, I dread to think the severity of the impact of your action. I dread to think of the ramification that you then face. And finally, just on this, some people will then say, okay, fine, I acknowledge this, I accept this, I realize the severity, but why do I need to then call for the la'an? Because fundamentally, it's Allah's job. You know, He's the judge. I'm not going to do anything, right? And you could take that stance, but from like a, you know, just thinking out loud perspective, not from when you look further into it. So when you look further into it, what we understand is, look, a human in its innate nature wants to call unto good things and wants to distance itself from bad things, right? I want to be amongst those who show love and mercy and kindness. I want to be amongst my parents. I don't want to be amongst murderers or those who commit sins. Innately, my heart knows which side to choose. My fitra knows which side to choose, right? I want to go to here. My way of then proclaiming the excellence of those who are positive, etc., etc., is by giving this reverence and praise and peacefulness to them. And equally, I need an outlet for the other side as well. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself, and we'll conclude on this point, talks of this importance, because in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 159, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, indeed, and it's very important we conclude and pay attention, my dear viewers, to this final point. Indeed, those who conceal what we have sent down of manifest proofs and guidance after we have clarified it in the book for mankind, أُولَٰئِكَ يَلْعَنُهُمُ اللَّهُ وَيَلْعَنُهُمُ اللَّاعِنُونَ, that they shall be cursed by Allah and by the cursers. And therefore we're the ones that partake in that, because it's not just Allah's curse, it is ours as well, because we want to be divine manifestations as well, and we want to partake in whatever Allah believes to be the right thing is. And if Allah is going to damn such people, I too want to make sure I'm damning such people, so I can have a clear path that I stand on.
Absolutely. So it's almost like a differentiation between truth and falsehood, right and
100%.
wrong. And there has to be a clear distinction, because if everyone is right and everyone is going to Jannah, or everyone is on the right path, then falsehood will mix with truth.
Falsehood will mix with truth, which means falsehood.
Yeah, well, you never know what's right and what's wrong. Absolutely. I can't wait for tomorrow's actually.
Inshallah. It's a strong one, this one, but I think, as I said, and just to reiterate that disclaimer at the start, it's a huge discussion. Papers have been written on it. If you want to take the time, please dig into it. But that's the lesson we take, inshallah.
Brilliant. As always, dear viewers of Imam Hussein TV, specifically Verses of Love, you can reach out to us on our social media platforms, specifically on Twitter. If you have any poetry, it is the night of Abbas alayhi salam. We're more than happy to be able to recite your poetry live on the show. So look for the hashtag Verses of Love on Twitter. Put couplets, rhymes, whatever poetry that you have on there about Abu Fadhl Al Abbas, Muharram, Imam Hussein, whatever it may be, and inshallah we can recite those in public for you.
And I think with that, we now move towards, and I think, dear brothers and sisters, for the remainder of this program, we'll be in a state of no doubt somberness with the spoken word pieces, with the Messiah will then come to, and so forth. So we dedicate from this point onwards towards Abu Fadhl, but initially we'll now start with a piece by our dear guest reciter, Brother Sajid Ali Deen, and we welcome him with the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
You see courage, but courage seeks refuge in him. You see courage, but courage seeks refuge in him. You see bravery, bravery shakes when it thinks of him. You see loyalty, loyalty gives its allegiance to him. You see humility, humility finds pride in him. You see fortitude, fortitude breaks in two for him. You see respect, respect bows to anything that reflects him. You see assistance, assistance begs for help from him. You see a warrior, warriors run away from him. You see everything, I just see him. I see nothing else when I hear his name. My mind is taken over and can't be tamed. The pain in my heart explodes into a flame, and this fire on my face spells out Abbas. You see gold, gold aspires to be like him. You see silver, silver tries to decorate him. You see a flag humbled, knowing its master is him. You see light, light's face darkens in sorrow for him. You see angels, angels astounded by the elegance in him. You see prophets, prophets wish they were a brother to him. You see prophets, prophets wish they were a brother to him. You see serenity, serenity finds comfort in him. You see a king, kings are ashamed to walk near him. You see everything, I just see him. All I see is arrows on his body dispersed, eyes burning for his pain into tears burst, and tears flood in his direction to quench his thirst. But they find a handless body and circle Abbas. You see thirst, he sees lips drier. You see suffering, he sees how to water acquire. You see hot sand, he sees fire. You see enemy, he sees his battle armor. You see spears, he sees flowers. You see arrows, he sees petals shower. You see his hands, but he still sees power. But you see the flask and he sees his final hour. Seeing his flask ripped, he stops there, confused. The tear extends to his heart, leaving a soul bruised. To give up until his last breath he refused. Every virtue mentioned in one name, Abbas. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Wa ali Muhammad. Ahsant.
Imam Hussein on the day of Ashura gives his banner to Abu Fadhl Al Abbas. Typically, within the battles in those days, the person with the banner or the banner indicated that the army is still fighting. If the banner is held high, that means the army is still alive and therefore they can carry on fighting. If the banner falls, therefore the army has been defeated and the person carrying the banner has passed away or has been martyred. But Imam Hussein trusts Abu Fadhl Al Abbas with practically his life and gives him the banner on the day of Ashura, knowing that he will defend the religion of Islam, being the most bravest and courageous and loyal servant of Abu Abdullah Al Hussein. When all the conversations have been had and all the prayers are given, when the numbers with Imam al-Hussein were decreasing and decreasing, all of the companions had been martyred, all of the family members had been martyred, we are left with two men and the camp of Imam al-Hussein. We are left with Abu Fadhl Al Abbas and Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. At this point, Imam al-Hussein turns left and right. هل من ناصر ينصرنا هل من معين يعيننا. When Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam left all his family members and called هل من ناصر ينصرنا هل من معين يعيننا. Now at this point he sees his brother coming towards him. أخي أبا عبد الله سيدي أبا عبد الله, my master Aba Abdullah, give me permission to go and fight. Imam al-Hussein looked at him, he said, Imam al-Hussein looked at Abu Fadhl Al Abbas and said, أخي أبا الفضل العباس أنت حامل لوائي كافل محملي. Brother Ya Abbas, you are the carrier of my flag, you are the carer of my family, you are my strength and my support. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if Allah strengthened Musa through Harun, and strengthened the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam through Ali, then Allah strengthened Hussein through Abu Fadhl Al Abbas salamullah alayhi. He says, you are my strength, you are my supporter. Losing you would be catastrophic, Ya Abu Fadhl Al Abbas. Who will take care of the women and the children? Abu Fadhl Al Abbas said, Sayyidi, but I cannot have more patience on those hypocrites, those enemies of Allah who are fighting you. Imam Hussein looked at him and said, okay, if you need to go out into the battlefield, why don't you get water for the women and children of Abi Abdullah al-Hussein rather than going to the Furat? Rather go to the river of Furat. When Imam al-Hussein said this to Abu Fadhl Al-Abbas, he heard the children of Imam al-Hussein crying, Al-Atash, Al-Atash. Uncle, we are thirsty, we are thirsty. The cries of the children rung through the ears of Abu Fadhl Al-Abbas, burning his heart. He says, okay, I will take this mission and go towards the river of Furat. He prepares himself, he takes his sword, takes the water bag, takes the banner and rides towards the Furat. As he is going towards the Furat, they all disperse like sheep from Abu Fadhl Al Abbas. None would come towards him. He reaches the river of Furat. This scene was witnessed by hundreds of people. They thought that he was going to drink from the water. But Abu Fadhl Al Abbas takes the water into his hands, and then he throws the water back. He throws the water back, and then he looks towards the camp of Imam al-Hussein. They were all asking why. This is when he said, Ya nafsu min ba'd al-Hussein huni فبعده ما كنت أن تكوني هذا حسين وارد المنون وتشربين بارد المعين والله ما هذا فعال ديني ولا فعال صادق اليقين. Oh my soul, you're trying to drink the water when your master Hussein is thirsty. Never, wallah, this is not the teachings of my father. This is not the teachings of my religion. He fills the bag with water, then he rides his horse. He puts the bag over his chest and over his shoulder, and now the bag has to be delivered to Sukaina. The bag has to be delivered to Abdullah al-Radi', the children of Imam al-Hussein. Now he heads to the tents. His only burning passion and dedication is to deliver the water to the children. Ajarakumullah, O mu'mineen. At that point, Umar bin Sa'ad cries, block him, for wallah, if the water reaches Hussein, you people will never be able to defeat him. So the enemies of Allah surrounded him from all sides. Imagine the scene, one man on his horse surrounded by hundreds of people. Where does Abu Fadhl Al Abbas turn? He turns left, he fights off people. He turns right, he fights off people. And the whole time he is carrying the banner up high, so Imam al-Hussein from a distance can see the banner is still up. Meaning, Ya Abu Abdullah, I will never let go of your banner. So then one of the enemies of Allah, as Abu Fadhl Al Abbas was riding back, he hid behind a palm tree. As Abu Fadhl Al Abbas came by that palm tree, he struck him with his sword over his right hand.
The right hand fell on the plains of Karbala. Aywa Abbas. He took the sword with the left hand and recited these lines of poetry. Wallahi inqata'tum yamini inni uhami abadan an dini wa an imam sadiq al-yaqini سبط النبي المصطفى الأمين. I swear by Allah, if you cut off my right hand, this will not deter me from defending my Imam. This is my conviction in him. It's as if he didn't feel the pain of losing his right hand. This lion took the sword in his left hand and the banner to his chest, and he continued going to the camp of Imam Hussein. Then another enemy of Allah hides behind another palm tree. The moment Abu Fadhl crosses him, he cuts off his left hand. Aywa Abbas, Aywa Sayyida, Aywa Mawla. He then takes the banner in his chest. At the same time, the bag of water clenched in his teeth. The banner has to stay up and the bag has to reach the camp of Hussein. Now heading to the camp of Imam al-Hussein. Imam al-Hussein, the only way he can deduce whether Abu Fadhl Al Abbas is okay or not is if the banner is held high. In the beginning, before he left, just after he left Furat, the banner was still and the banner was held high, but he could see the flag was wavering. He could see the flag moving left or right. He feared for his brother, Sukaina, Ruqayya, Zainab, all looking to Imam al-Hussein. Is our uncle Abbas okay? Is he coming back to bring us the water? Now we go back to Abu Fadhl Al Abbas in a painful state, no arms, brothers and sisters, holding the banner up high with his chest as much as he could and the water bag. His only dying hope is that he can return the water bag to the family of Hussein. Ajarakumullah ya mu'mineen. At this point, he was showered with the arrows of the enemies of Allah. An arrow hit his chest, his leg, his back, but the one arrow that hurt Abu Fadhl Al Abbas was the arrow that hit the bag of water and spilled all the water. That's when Abu Fadhl Al Abbas felt the pain. That's when he stood there idle, confused. Does he go towards the camp without water for leaving Sukaina without water, or does he go back to the river? At this point, Abu Fadhl Al Abbas fell off his horse. Abu Fadhl Al Abbas fell off his horse. Just before that, another arrow came towards the right eye of Abu Fadhl Al Abbas. Another arrow hit his chest. But brothers and sisters, when one of the arrows that hit Abu Fadhl Al Abbas in his right eye was so painful for him. But even if something is painful in your eye and you had your hands, you'd be able to remove it. Abu Fadhl Al Abbas had no hands to remove the arrow from his eye, falling onto the plains of Karbala with arrows all over his body. This point, Abu Fadhl Al Abbas falling off his horse, and for the first time he cried out. At this point, just before he cried out, an enemy of Allah came with an iron pole and struck Abu Fadhl Al Abbas on the head. At this point, the last dying hope of Abu Fadhl Al Abbas, he cries out, Akhi Hussein adrikni. Oh, my brother Hussein. For the first time he mentioned the word brother in his desperate state, calling out, Hussein, save me. Oh my brother, come to my rescue, come to your brother Abbas. Imam al-Hussein now, when he sees the banner is no longer up high, rushes towards his brother. At this point, he saw his brother Abu Fadhl Al Abbas lying on the plains of Karbala, blood flowing from his body. What horrific state did you see your brother in? The right hand on one side, the left hand on the other side, an arrow in his eye, another arrow in his chest. He screams out, Wa akha, oh brother, al-an inkasara dhahri, now my back is broken. When the dust settled, oh mu'mineen, the dust settled, Imam al-Hussein walked towards the body of Abu Fadhl Al Abbas in his final moments. Abbas alayhi salam, hearing the footsteps coming towards him, he could only speak. He couldn't move. He had no arms to move. He couldn't see. He was just waiting and hoping and praying that this was his brother. As he hears the man walking towards him, he says, oh man, please, if you are not Hussein, please, just allow my brother Hussein to come to me so that my brother Hussein can see me one last time. Imam al-Hussein says, it's me, oh brother. What have they done to you? Imam al-Hussein kneels by his brother Abbas, attempts to put Abbas's head on his lap. Abbas moves away and places it on the ground. Once again, Imam al-Hussein tries to put the head of Abu Fadhl Al Abbas onto his lap. And again, Abbas removes. The third time, he wants to put the head of Abbas near his chest, on his lap, so that he can comfort him. Abbas removes it. Imam al-Hussein asks, why these are our final moments? Why don't you want your head on my lap? Abu Fadhl Al Abbas, with a weak voice, he says, right now my head is on your lap, oh Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. For in a few moments, who will be on your lap? Who will be there to comfort you, Ya Hussein, Ya Abu Abdullah? Before his final moments, Abbas alayhi salam says to Imam al-Hussein, why have you come? Why have you come? Please leave me here, oh brother. I don't want you to take me to the camps. I don't want my sister Zainab to see me in this state. I don't want to see the face of Sukaina if I tell her that I couldn't get water. So Abbas alayhi salam, ajarakumullah, his soul departs. He becomes a martyr in the hands of Imam al-Hussein. Imam al-Hussein, devastated, back broken, heads to the camp. He reaches the camp, doesn't say anything, walks past Zainab, walks past Sukaina, walks past the women and children. They're asking, where is our Uncle Abbas? He heads to the camp of Al-Abbas alayhi salam, and he removes the pillar, signaling Abbas is no more. Sayyida Zainab realized that her brother Abbas would not be coming back. The women and children cry out, Wa Abbasa, Aywa Sayyida, Aywa Madluma. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون.
In Zainab's dreams, his flag still flutters. Allah. In Zainab's dreams, his flag still flutters, a soldier's power. He is beauty and his fear, his passion and his anger. His smile would make gravity fly. He's God's treasure. He's the rope that holds in its place this planet and its equator. He's the one they all desire. He is the water flask. Everything is Hussein's flag bearer, for everything is Abbas. From impurity he's immune. Stamped by God this declaration, the value of his virtues and unmatched reputation. In this journey to God's love, he was the best foundation of all qualities known to be good. He was their summation. He'd raise the flag of loyalty to which heartless men would cry. Over the tents of Hussein's women, he would become the sky. He'd raise the flag of loyalty to which heartless men would cry. Over the tents of Hussein's women, he would become the sky. Protection was guaranteed so long as Abbas was alive. In fact, when faced with danger, safety itself to be Abbas would strive. He was the sky that looked over them, like a teacher over his class. He was the cloud that shaded them, for everything is Abbas. Merciless men would watch his shadow as it descended on Karbala's sands. He'd reach the Euphrates River, drowning in his dried glands. He'd kneel cautiously at its edge and cup together his heavenly hands. And under Karbala's scorching sun, every hair on his body would stand, because as soon as his eyes would turn to the silent ripples of water, thirsty tears would form in the head of Hussein's brother. He'd see drawn in the tiny waves a shadow like no other. He'd see pointing to her dry lips Hussein's young daughter. His life and death, his every vein, submission to just one task. Everything is obeying Hussein, and everything is Abbas. He'd throw the water at the water for his father's happiness, and rise onto a battlefield like a moon by Ali dressed. He'd split their heads in two. God's enemies he'd address. I am the son of Haydar, Muhammad's son you won't oppress. They'd sever his right and it would fall. Nothing will stop me, he'd call. And his left they'd strike. So armless but fearless, he'd stay standing tall. Arrows would rain down on his body, and like a droplet into his eye one would fall. So he'd bend his face down to his feet. If I must to Hussein I'll crawl. To a bleeding eye he won't surrender. His legs will become his arms. The whole world is Hussein's defender, for everything is Abbas. His army had once seen tens of men who all when killed called out for Hussein, yet reluctant was Abbas, for he felt an agonizing shame. When finally he'd begin to die, he'd whisper a beautiful name and fly to him with his master, only to find a candle without a flame. They'd embrace in a moment that shook God's throne. Ripped apart was Hussein's spine, in the broken body of his backbone. Blinded by blood he knew seeds of Hussein's slaughter had been sown, because with the toppling of Hussein's mountain, the master of heaven was alone. Of their hope, he was the holder. Now he resembles shattered glass. He was the hand on Hussein's shoulder. Everything was Abbas, and in losing his brother, he lost himself. Hussein now even forgot his thirst. In fear of God's wrath and vengeance, each member of his opposition dispersed. He rode back towards Zainab, in the deepest sorrow immersed. And the killers of Abbas, the universe cursed. For him fish swim, and for him birds sing. Trees grow leaves, and the rain clouds bring. For he is the root that holds each tree. He is every bird's wing. He's the prayer of Zahra. Abbas is everything. So he'd remove the pole that held Abbas's tent. Zainab wouldn't even have to ask. And now I'll die with a back bent. For everything was Abbas, and in Zainab's dreams his flag still flutters, a soldier's power. He is beauty and he's fear, he's passion and he's anger. He's the one they all desire. He is the water flask. For everything is Hussein's flag bearer, and everything is Abbas.
Where Dawood al-Raqi says that he was sat with Abi Abdullah Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, when Imam alayhi salam, he asked for some water. And after he drank it, his eyes were filled with tears and he started to cry. At which point the Imam said to Dawood, "O Dawood, may Allah's curse be upon the killers of Hussein alayhi salam. Verily, if a slave of Allah drinks water, remembering Hussein alayhi salam and cursing his killers, Allah will register 100,000 good deeds for him. He will wipe 100,000 bad deeds from his book of deeds and will add 100,000 ranks to his status. And it will be as if he has freed 100,000 slaves. On the day of judgment, Allah will resurrect him with his heart filled with peace." A profound hadith and a very touching one for a night like this where we recall the thirst quencher. And Sajid, I just wanted to ask, in that second poem that you just delivered, again you allude to this prayer of Sayyid Zahra salamullah alayha. What was the resounding theme when you thought about this poem that you wanted to explore, and did you feel it came across, or did you feel it went on a different path than you initially anticipated?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. To sort of just indicate your first question, Fatima al-Zahra has always had sort of a big impact on my life, and I feel like I just connect with her and her musibah and her story quite well. And I feel like sometimes in every poem I write, almost every poem I write, she has at least a mention. And that sometimes is something that just happens, and sometimes it's sort of premeditated. This one specifically, the idea behind it was, I think for the majority of the Shia, the night of Abu Fadhl Al Abbas, whether that's the 6th night as we spoke about, or whether it's a different night in other cultures, is always a special night.
Yeah.
And it's always a night that even the day preceding it, we're sort of prepping almost,
preparing for it, yeah,
right,
absolutely,
to mourn him. And this one was just about the idea that everything in our life on that day is about Abu Fadhl Al Abbas, but really everything in life generally throughout the year should be about the one who Imam Hussein alayhi salam said everything is Abbas, right?
Yeah.
And I think that was really the idea behind it.
It's one of those personalities that transcends any culture in terms of importance, right? I think obviously some cultures pay, I know for example in the Khwaja tradition and maybe the Pakistani tradition, there's a lot of emphasis played on Muhammad at one point, but not so much, for example, I don't think that in the tradition in the Arab community that they have a specific night for him, right? Qasim, everyone has a common night, Ali al-Akbar, Abdullah al-Radhi. And Abu Fadhl, as you said, it has an extra, fever to it, it has an extra passion, and I don't know, it's a man who I think, as you said, he is everything to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. We know the famous saying that from that point, al-an in kasr al-dhahri, that point my back is broken. And I think even for us, I think the Masa'ib of Al-Abbas alayhi salam is almost that complete shatter.
Yeah.
And you have nothing left, almost once you hear those final words. So thank you for sharing that. And to viewers, we won't take too much of your time on this night of, I think I would say, of Haja as well, of where you should seek his intercession, the one who will fly towards the highest stations of heaven to take your dua, and ask sincerely through the wasila of Abu Fadhl, Bab al-Hawa'ij, and inshallah your desires will be granted. And we'll conclude with a final recitation on this epic, beautiful scholar and lion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Abu Fadhl Al Abbas alayhi salam, through the voice of Mullah Ali Fadhl.
Oh Abbas, I am your mother. Oh Abbas, I am your mother. I've seen what you've been through. I've seen what you've been through. your brothers that fell too. This is how I raised you. Oh Abbas, there's children crying. Oh Abbas, there's children crying. Did you bring the water to quench Hussein's daughter, or were you slaughtered? Oh Abbas, you are our only. Oh Abbas, you are our only. Where is our flag bearer? Where is our flag bearer? Sickna needs her carer. Which arm did they sever? Which arm did they sever? Arrow edged in your eye, arrow edged in your eye. You hear the children cry. He can't take this no more. To bring water he swore. To bring water he swore. Oh Abbas, you reached the water. Oh Abbas, you reached the water. Tell us which was the worst. Hussein would not drink first, or you still felt your thirst. Oh Abbas, right in that moment, tell me what you had felt when the water was spilled. Please don't tell me it's guilt. Oh Abbas, can you hear Zainab? Oh Abbas, can you hear Zainab? She cries for her brother. She wails to her mother. Will I lose another? Will I lose another? Zainab left with no guide. Children nowhere to hide. Zainab left with no guide. Children nowhere to hide. His arms fell to the floor. His arms fell to the floor. To bring water he swore. To bring water he swore. Oh Abbas, his back is broken. Oh Abbas, his back is broken. When he came to your aid, your life began to fade. On his lap your head laid. Oh Abbas, the children waited. Oh Abbas, the children waited. They ask, oh uncle, why? They ask, oh uncle, why? All the tears have gone dry. Do you ignore our cry? Oh Abbas, can you see Hussein? Oh Abbas, can you see Hussein? Alone in Karbala, alone in Karbala. Sajjad watching afar. We hear screams from Zahra. We hear screams from Zahra. Both limbs torn from his side. Both limbs torn from his side. Hussein's back, Zainab's pride. Hussein's back, Zainab's pride. With your wings you'll soon soar. With your wings you'll soon soar. To bring water he swore. To bring water he he swore. Now the moon is no more. Now the moon is no more. Zainab's cheek is still sore. Zainab's cheek is still sore. Abbas lies on the floor. Abbas lies on the floor. To bring water he swore. To bring water he swore. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين، خصوصا سيدي ومولاي قمر بني هاشم أبي الفضل العباس، وقته زينب جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. وإلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات، رحم الله من قرأ سورة المباركة الفاتحة مع الصلوات.